I am David Feldman, and this is the mop-up for May 23rd, 2023. Jeff Bezos and his girlfriend are getting married. So at least there's one union this guy supports. If you'd like to buy the hideous couple a wedding gift, they're registered at All Things Sulfuric. You know that they smell bad. Look at them. They just smell like a beer and bean fart. Look at that face. No matter how much he spends, he still looks like an undescended testicle. That's his face. It looks like an undescended testicle. Speaking of undescended testicles, David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, who made more than $200 million last year, was booed on Sunday at Boston University while he was giving a commencement address. They should also boo whoever booked this prick to speak at Boston University. Students screamed obscenities. They screamed, "We don't want you here. Pay your writers and shut up Zaslav." Zaslav is a graduate of Boston University, and he was there to receive an honorary degree. Enjoy.
If you want to be successful, you're going to have to figure out how to get along with everyone. And that includes difficult people. Some people... Pay your riders! Pay your riders!
Good for you. Good for you, Boston University. He is not your ally. And by the way, just because he was able to bring home $250 million last year, that doesn't mean he's successful. It just means he's got sharp elbows and he's a bully, but he's also a failure. Take a look at this prick. Now, all he's done is grown Warner Brothers Discovery and tacked on debt, and that forces him to fire everybody. He bought CNN. He's destroying CNN. Did you know that, I think it was Greg Kelly? I don't know where Greg Kelly is. He's either at Newsmax or One America Network. He's now beating CNN. So they gave the town hall to Donald Trump earlier this month, and they got great ratings, but there was no stickiness. People tuned in to see Donald Trump, and they went away. They stopped watching CNN after Donald Trump appeared. So they didn't even make money off that because there was no advertising. Let me show you what a stupid prick David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers, is. He's just a bully. This is the stock. See, if anybody would pay attention, if we weren't all financial illiterates, we would not allow these mergers and acquisitions, and we certainly wouldn't let these worthless pricks like David Zaslav, these bullies, take over. This is the stock. Look at it. It's closed at $12.20 Monday night. Since January of 2006, it's just hovered, around $12. It shot up in, January to over 50, and now it's back down to 12. Nobody benefits. See, if this country is so financially illiterate that we allow people like David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, to run roughshod over our jobs and our lives. He presents all these mergers and acquisitions. I'm going to buy CNN. I'm going to buy Warner Brothers from AT&T, and it's going to be good for the shareholders. It never is. If we weren't so financially illiterate, we would know this. If you own stock in Warner Brothers Discovery, you're losing money. You know who's not losing money? David Zaslav, because he pays himself $250 million a year. He's a failure. Look at the stock. You got to wake up and know who your enemy is. It's people like David Zaslav. They're frauds. He sold the purchase of Warner Brothers as though it would be good for shareholders, and it isn't. He's a failure. He's an effing failure. And CNN and Chris Licht are laying off people. Warner Brothers is laying everybody off because they accrued so much debt to make these purchases that the shareholders were against. There's no democracy in these corporations. They're failing. They are absolute failures. The stock market dipped on Monday after doctored photos of an explosion at the Pentagon ended up on verified Twitter accounts posing as Bloomberg News. The former CEO of Microsoft, Bill Gates, saw that this was happening and immediately warned after the stock market dipped because of artificial intelligence messing with Twitter. He warned that artificial intelligence is on the brink of destroying Google's search engine business. He added that whatever big tech company can move the quickest on AI, they will reap the biggest rewards. Gates warned that shopping using artificial intelligence could pose a serious threat to Amazon. So there's something good about AI if it puts Amazon out of business. Meanwhile, there are new reports that Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed Bill Gates after Epstein learned that Bill Gates was cheating on then-wife Melinda with a Russian bridge player back in 2010. According to new reporting in the Wall Street Journal, Jeffrey Epstein was working with our friends over at J.P. Morgan Chase to establish a multi-billion-dollar charitable fund, and he wanted Bill Gates to become what is called an anchor donor. But when Bill Gates didn't seem interested, Jeffrey Epstein, through a series of messages, let Bill Gates know that he could ruin his marriage and his reputation by making Bill Gates's extramarital affair public. Bill Gates had several meetings with Jeffrey Epstein starting in 2011 and flew to Florida on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane in 2013 because, Bill Gates needs to save money. Why, hey, you have a private plane, Jeffrey Epstein? I'm just Bill Gates. Let me know I want to learn what a private plane is like. Can I fly on it with you? And they also met that year in Paris. Great judge of character, Bill Gates, right? Another bully, Bill Gates. He didn't invent MS-DOS. He bought it. He invented nothing. He's a Harvard dropout with a rich father who had sharp elbows and was a monopolist. And now he's doing monopoly in philanthropy. Instead of paying his fair share of taxes, he set up the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, claiming, no, I can spend the money better than the government can. No, how about you just pay your taxes and we spend that money with transparency and democratically, and not have you dictate what seeds and what drugs the people of Africa are going to be forced to buy to feather your nest. Go read about how he pushes certain seeds, certain drugs from Merck, all the companies he owns stocks in through his philanthropy, and Africa has to buy what Bill Gates tells them he has to buy. Bill Gates, the genius, who great judge of character, didn't know that Jeffrey Epstein was trafficking underage women. Always trust the billionaires in America. They're the dumbest, and their kids are worse. We should tax them out of existence. Two memos declassified by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence on Friday now reveal that in 2020, the FBI got permission from a FISA court to examine the electronic communications of Black Lives Matter protesters to determine whether or not they were terrorists. 133 members of the Black Lives Matter organization were spied on back in 2020 after the FBI invoked Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which permits the FBI to spy on foreigners who are deemed potential adversaries. I didn't know that Black Lives Matter protesters, and I think I was one of them, I didn't know that I was a foreigner, a potential adversary. I thought I was just trying to get cops to stop killing unarmed black men. Black Lives Matter is a domestic organization whose protests, despite the lies from Fox News, they were all peaceful. Read about the reporting done by the New York Times and the Washington Post. There was no violence caused by the Black Lives Matter protesters. It was caused either by cops showing up and turning violent, or agent provocateurs. Read the Washington Post. Read the New York Times. Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which was used to justify spying on Black Lives Matter protesters, is up for renewal later this year. I can assure you nobody was spying on Kyle Rittenhouse, who showed up to a Black Lives Matter protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin, with 2 AR-15s, killing 2, wounding 1. Like I said, outside agitators, white outside agitators. On Saturday, the NAACP introduced a travel advisory for Florida. Now, all last week, I said, when are we going to boycott Florida and make them pay a price for Ron DeSantis? Well, on Saturday, the NAACP introduced a travel advisory for Florida, calling the state unsafe for black people. The NAACP's formal travel notice states, quote, Florida's openly hostile towards African Americans, people of color, and LGBTQ plus individuals. The NAACP says that before traveling to Florida, you need to understand that the state of Florida and their governor, Ron DeSantis, devalues and marginalizes the contributions of and the challenges faced by African Americans and other communities of color. NAACP President and CEO Derek Johnson accused Governor Ron DeSantis of spreading hate by banning the teaching of African American studies, as well as banning books from school libraries that teach the true history of slavery and Jim Crow. Thank you, NAACP. All last week I said, when is somebody going to call for a boycott of Ron DeSantis' Florida? Well, Texas Senator Ted Cruz called the NAACP's travel advisory, quote unquote, bizarre and utterly dishonest. You sure you're not describing yourself, Ted? He added that Dr. King would no longer be able to recognize the NAACP. Why don't you go? You know, they love the cherry-picked memory of Dr. King. They love to invoke Dr. King, even though they were against celebrating his birthday. But you know, as through the mists of time, they pick what Dr. King would be for and what he be against. Well, Dr. King's daughter, Bernice King, responded to Senator Ted Cruz's bastardization of Dr. King's teachings. She immediately fired back and said, my father would have been deeply disturbed by the legislation coming out of Ron DeSantis' Florida. Bernice King added Dr. King opposed the 3 evils, which were, he said, militarism, materialism, and racism. Militarism, materialism, and racism, of course, are the founding principles of Ted Cruz's Republican Party. How dare you say, Ted Cruz, that Dr. King would be against the NAACP's travel advisory? How dare you? Last week, the Gay Pride Parade in Tampa, Florida, had to be canceled after organizers said they felt it wasn't safe. And they were afraid, because of the anti-LGBTQ climate that Ron DeSantis was creating, that outside agitators would show up, like the Proud Boys. You know, even though the Proud Boys are going to prison, they're still organizing anti-LGBTQ protests, and they're calling it, the rallies are called, Let's Go Beat Up Queers. That's what the Proud Boys are calling their get-togethers. Let's go beat up the queers. Donald Trump's stand back and stand by. Isn't that what he said to them? There's a fear now that a gay pride parade in Florida featuring drag queens would result in arrests. On Monday, organizers of the gay pride parade in St. Cloud, Florida, which was scheduled for next month, also announced that they were canceling their festivities for the same reason. I'm trying to get this going. The Marquis DeSantis, that's the nickname I want to get going. So please start calling Ron DeSantis the Marquis DeSantis, because he is like the Marquis de Sade. He's a sadist. Read about what he did in Gitmo. He was a JAG officer for the Navy. He was stationed at Gitmo while we were waterboarding and tortured, and he could barely contain his shriveled boner. Read about this sadist. Bad news for Fox. Has a problem when it comes to persecuting transgender people. Despite building its reputation as America's #1 queer basher, Fox News, it turns out, is very accepting of members of the transgender community who work for Fox News. This is very disappointing, especially to the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation, the ultra-conservative Heritage Foundation, has a website called the Daily Signal, and they issued a report that Fox has gone woke. The Heritage Foundation's Daily Signal got its hands on the Fox News Employee Handbook, and it's not good for the transphobes. Employees at Fox News, in accordance with both California and New York state law, are not ordered to use bathrooms based on the gender assigned to them at birth, right? All day on Fox News, you hear about transgender people using the wrong bathrooms. Fox News, transgender people can use any bathroom they want, and they are free to dress any way they like. It's almost as though Fox News is just using the transgender community to get ratings and distract our attention away from income inequality. That can't be, though, could it? Family Values conservative and recently divorced Congresswoman, the very putrid Marjorie Taylor Greene, and you know she smells. Look at her. You know she's just filled with sulfuric rot. Well, she's divorced, and she's a Christian and runs on Family Values. Go watch my previous episodes about her affairs with the gym rats, the tantric sex gurus. Family Values, yeah. Anyway, she's dating Brian Glenn, a failed anchor who could only get work with Right Side Broadcasting. That's her new boyfriend. But new video has surfaced of her idiot boyfriend, Brian, in drag. Take a look. This is her boyfriend in drag when he was doing feature reporting for a local Texas television station. This was on television. He was in drag where children could see him. And that's now illegal in Texas, to go on television in drag because children could see you. The anti-trans bill passed in Texas would make what idiot loser Brian Glenn did before he got fired from a local television station, had to go find work with Right Side Broadcasting. I don't even know what that is. And so hypocrisy? No, that's not hypocrisy. Marjorie Taylor Greene laughed it off, said it was funny and called the left stupid for suggesting that this was hypocrisy. Well, let's talk about stupidity. I mean, real stupidity on the right. That's a picture of Donald Trump dancing to YMCA. Well, the wife of the Village People's lead singer wants Donald Trump to stop dancing and playing YMCA at his rallies for fear Americans will think the band, the Village People, which produced countless gay anthems during the late 1970s, she's worried that people are going to think that the Village People have endorsed Donald Trump. After receiving a cease and desist order threatening to sue, Trump's attorney, Joe Tacopina, said he would only deal with attorneys representing the Village People, not the lead singer's wife. How dismissive, right? The lead singer's wife. I'm not talking to a woman. Joe Tacopina then added the Village People should be grateful that Donald Trump is making their music popular again. Yes, up until Donald Trump started playing YMCA at his rallies, you would never hear YMCA at a sporting event. You know, it always amazes me how stupid Trump supporters are. YMCA is a gay anthem. It celebrates. Now, I understand if you're young, you don't know this. If you didn't grow up in the 80s, you wouldn't know this. But the people who show up at the Trump rallies are my age and older, and they know, or they should, if their brains weren't so addled by sugar, they would be able to remember that the Village People were a gay disco band in the late 70s. YMCA is a gay song. It celebrates men hooking up for gay sex at the YMCA. And I see this being played at Trump rallies and him dancing. I think, oh, he's just mocking his supporters. He's just like rubbing it in their face. Like, look how stupid you are. And you're all clapping and I'm dancing to a gay anthem in front of a bunch of brain dead homophobes. YMCA is not a song that celebrates the Young Men's Christian Association. It's a song celebrating gay sex at the Young Men's Christian Association. And Trump knows that. He knows YMCA is a gay anthem. It was recorded by the Village People, who are gay icons celebrating Greenwich Village, right? The Village People, they're from Greenwich Village, the site of the Stonewall riot. Donald Trump knows this. This is just him mocking his supporters. He lived through Studio 54. He knows exactly what YMCA is about. And when he plays it, he doesn't believe the hundreds and thousands of homophobes dancing with him. He just likes to watch them dance to a gay anthem. He likes to laugh inside at how stupid his supporters are. They don't know it. They don't know that YMCA is a gay anthem. Why? Because if you're a homophobe, you're an effing moron. It's unbelievable how stupid. And we're letting them take over. We're letting the stupid people decide. God bless E. Jean Carroll. God bless E. Jean Carroll, who already won a $5 million judgment against Donald Trump when a Manhattan jury ruled he sexually assaulted her and then defamed her after saying he didn't know who she was. Well, E. Jean Carroll and her lawyers on Monday announced that they were taking Trump back to court. They're suing him once again for defamation. Carroll's lawyers say Trump defamed her again during a CNN town hall earlier this month when Trump once again lied, insisting he had no idea who she was and then called her a whack job. Her lawyers are now asking for an additional $5 million in damages to be tacked onto the $5 million judgment already awarded to her. A lot of lawsuits. America's drunk. That would be Rudy Giuliani. How much is he worth? You know, he works for free for Trump. How much is he worth? We're going to find out. A federal judge in a defamation case filed by 2 Georgia election workers claiming Giuliani falsely accused them of tampering with the 2020 elections in order to help Joe Biden win Georgia. These 2 women, by the way, are black. They claim Giuliani's false claims subjected them to harassment and death threats in their homes. Giuliani is being sued. This is one of those underreported defamation cases. Giuliani told the judge he's completely broke but doesn't want to show his finances. The judge wants him to prove that he's broke, so Giuliani is going to have to open his books. It's going to be a public part of the public record, and we'll find out just how broke this alcoholic Rudy Giuliani is. I didn't know this until today. One America News, there's Newsmax and One America, they're trying to be Fox News. One America News used to have Giuliani on all the time, and he defamed these 2 election workers in 2020 and 2021. They've already settled with the 2 women. They had a out-of-court settlement last year. These are just worthless scumbags. Giuliani, DeSantis, Ted Cruz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Donald Trump, that whole family. You know, I used to think, why dignify them and talk about these putrid losers? But they're winning. They're winning. They're holding up right now. Hakeem Jeffries said, well, Kevin McCarthy, we're going to have to negotiate with him. We're going to have to freeze some spending here. If you can't defeat incontinent losers like Trump and his minions, I don't know. Do we deserve a country anymore if we can't defeat these losers? All right, that's it. Please like this. Please share it. Hey, a lot of people ask about the podcast. The podcast, this is an audio podcast primarily. It comes out every day. I have fascinating guests who I talk to. And if you're watching me on YouTube right now and you'd like to listen to the podcast, please know that it comes out every day. You can get it wherever podcasts are delivered. We're on every platform. And what we've started to do this year is we're posting the audio podcast every day at 9 a.m. here on YouTube. So please subscribe to my audio podcast. We have fascinating guests. And so if you'd like to hear the podcast, the meat of the show, subscribe to it's just audio, but it's a great listen. And I didn't realize people would actually want to listen to a podcast on YouTube, but apparently some of you do that. I think that covers everything. We have a great office hours scheduled for this Friday at 8 p.m. Please subscribe to my newsletter. Thank you to the mods for keeping the chat room clean. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak.